There is a network of cities scattered across Saudi Arabia, where something is happening that should be impossible. These are not tourist destinations. They are not international hubs. They are ordinary Saudi cities, places like Tabuk in the north, Al-Khobar in the east, Abha in the southern mountains, and neighborhoods tucked into the sprawling capital of Riyadh. Most people have never heard of these specific communities. They blend into the landscape of one of the world's most controlled nations. But what makes these places significant right now has nothing to do with their size or their economy. What makes them significant is what's happening inside the homes, inside the minds, and inside the hearts of thousands of people who live there. In cities across Saudi Arabia, from the Red Sea coast to the desert interior, Jesus Christ is appearing to people in dreams and visions. And the testimonies are spreading faster than anyone can track. I know how that sounds. I know it feels almost impossible to believe. But before you dismiss this as religious sensationalism or wishful thinking, I want you to hear what's actually happening. I want you to see the pattern of testimonies. I want you to understand why researchers, ministries, and even former skeptics are calling this one of the most significant supernatural movements in the modern Middle East. Let me be very clear about something from the beginning. What is happening right now is not a story someone made up. It is not an exaggeration for clicks. It is a documented, rapidly growing phenomenon that is happening beneath the surface of one of the most restricted nations on earth, and no human organization is controlling it. Let me explain why this is so shocking. Saudi Arabia is not a place where Christianity is simply unpopular or culturally rejected. It is absolutely, unequivocally forbidden. This is a country that operates entirely under Sharia law. That means Islamic law is not just a religious guideline, it is the law of the land. It governs everything. What you wear, what you say, where you go, who you marry, what you read, what you watch, and most critically, what you believe. In Saudi Arabia, there is no such thing as freedom of religion. The government does not recognize the existence of any religion other than Islam within its borders. There are no church buildings anywhere in the country. There are no Christian schools. There are no crosses on any rooftop or doorway. You cannot carry a Bible openly in public. You cannot wear jewelry with a cross. You cannot play Christian music in your car. You cannot even mention the name of Jesus in prayer inside your own home if there is any chance someone might report you. If you are caught sharing the message of Jesus with someone, you will be arrested. If you are caught with Christian materials, books, videos, pamphlets, you will be interrogated. Your phone will be searched. Your contacts will be questioned. And if you are a Saudi citizen who converts from Islam to Christianity, you have committed what is called apostasy. And under the strict interpretation of Sharia law that Saudi Arabia enforces, apostasy is punishable by death. There is a group in Saudi Arabia that enforces all of this. They are called the Mutaween, the religious police. Some call them the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice. Their job is to monitor public and private life to ensure that Islamic law is being followed. They patrol streets. They watch neighborhoods. They investigate reports. If a woman's clothing is considered immodest, they stop her. If a shop remains open during the call to prayer, they shut it down. If they suspect someone of practicing Christianity or abandoning Islam, they investigate. They have legal authority to enter homes, question families, confiscate phones and computers, and make arrests. These are not suggestions. This is not cultural pressure. This is law enforcement with the power of the state behind it. The system is designed to ensure that Islam remains the only religion practiced in Saudi Arabia. There is no room for anything else. There is no space for debate. There is no tolerance for the name of Jesus. And that is exactly why what is happening right now is so stunning. On paper, Christianity in Saudi Arabia should not exist. It should have been stamped out long ago. There should be no believers. There should be no underground gatherings. There should be no one even thinking about Jesus, let alone risking their lives to follow him. And yet, the evidence tells a completely different story. Over the last several months, reports have been flooding in from multiple independent sources, organizations that monitor religious freedom in closed countries, researchers who study the growth of Christianity in the Muslim world, ministries that work in secret with underground believers, and encrypted networks where Saudi Christians communicate in hidden digital spaces. And what they are all reporting is the same thing. Something is moving. Something is growing. And it cannot be stopped. Let me tell you what they are finding. The testimonies all start the same way. With a person who was not looking for Jesus. A person who had no contact with Christians. A person who had never read the Bible, and had no intention of ever doing so. And yet, in the middle of the night, Jesus came to them. One of those people is a young Saudi woman we will call Mariam. Mariam grew up in a strict home in one of the major cities in Saudi Arabia. Her childhood was structured, predictable, controlled. She memorized prayers before she could read. She fasted during Ramadan every year without complaint. She wore what she was told to wear, said what she was told to say, and followed every rule without question. At least, not out loud. Because inside, Mariam was suffocating. She went through the motions of faith, but she felt nothing. Prayer felt like reciting lines from a script. Fasting felt like obligation without meaning. Religious gatherings felt empty. She looked around at her family, her friends, her community, and everyone seemed so certain, so confident, so at peace with what they believed. But Mariam was not at peace. She had questions she could never ask, doubts she could never voice, a longing for something she could not name. And in a culture where doubt is seen as betrayal, where questioning is considered dangerous, Mariam learned to hide. She smiled. She nodded. She performed her role perfectly. But inside, she was drowning. One night, after another long day of pretending, Mariam locked herself in her room. The weight of everything she could not say finally broke through. She sat on the edge of her bed and cried. Not loud, dramatic sobs, quiet, desperate tears. The kind that come when you have been holding something in for so long that your body cannot contain it anymore. She did not pray. She did not know who to pray to. She just whispered into the silence, "Is there anything real?" Exhausted, she finally fell asleep. And that is when everything changed. In her dream, Mariam found herself standing in a place she had never seen before. It was wide and open, stretching endlessly in every direction. But it was not frightening. The space was filled with a gentle, warm light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. She felt calm, safe, seen. And then she noticed him. A man stood in front of her. She had never seen his face before, and yet something in her spirit recognized him immediately. His presence was overwhelming, but not in a way that made her want to run. It was the kind of overwhelming that made her want to stay forever. He looked at her, and when he spoke, his voice was both gentle and unshakable. "Mariam," he said, "I know your heart." She froze. He knew her name. He knew her. He continued, "You have been searching without knowing what you are searching for. I am the way." Mariam wanted to ask who he was. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions. But before she could speak, something happened that she had never experienced in her entire life. She felt loved. Completely. Unconditionally. Without fear. Without judgment. Without condition. She had spent her whole life afraid of doing something wrong, saying something wrong, being something wrong. But in this moment, standing in front of this man she did not yet know, She felt no fear at all. Only love. When Mariam woke up, her pillow was soaked with tears. But these were not the same tears she had cried before falling asleep. These were different. Tears of relief. Tears of hope. Tears of something she could not yet explain. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. The dream felt more real than anything she had ever experienced while awake. The man's face was still vivid in her mind. His voice still echoed in her ears. And the feeling, that overwhelming sense of being loved without fear, still wrapped around her like a blanket. Mariam did not know who the man was. But she could not forget him. So she did the most dangerous thing a young woman in Saudi Arabia could do. She searched. Late that night, with her bedroom door locked and her phone screen dimmed to almost nothing, Mariam typed questions into a search engine that she had never dared to ask out loud. Her hands were shaking. Every few seconds, she glanced at the door, terrified someone might walk in. Man in white in dreams. Man of light speaking in visions. Who appears in dreams to Muslims. And then, the results started coming. Articles. Testimonies. Images. That is when she saw it. A picture of Jesus. Her breath caught. Her hands started trembling so badly, she almost dropped her phone. It was him, she whispered. It was the same face. The same presence. The same man who had spoken her name and told her he knew her heart. Mariam spent the rest of the night reading, searching, discovering. And the more she read, the more she realized something that both terrified and comforted her. She was not alone. There were private groups, encrypted forums, hidden networks of people all across Saudi Arabia who had experienced the exact same thing. Different people, different cities, different backgrounds. Same man, same voice, same peace. Jesus was appearing to them. And he had appeared to her. Mariam sat in the glow of her phone screen, tears streaming down her face, and realized that her life would never be the same. She had a choice to make. She could pretend the dream never happened. She could go back to the routine, the rules, the emptiness. Or she could follow the man who knew her heart. That night, Mariam made her decision. She would risk everything. Mariam's story would be remarkable on its own. A single encounter. A single dream. A single life changed in the middle of the night in one of the most restricted nations on earth. But Mariam's story is not singular. It is part of a pattern. In Jeddah, a 17-year-old boy we will call Ahmad had the same experience. Ahmad was not religious. He went through the motions because his family expected it, but his mind was on other things: video games, friends, football, his future. He had never thought seriously about God, let alone about Jesus. One night, Ahmad dreamed he was standing alone in a stadium. Empty seats stretched endlessly around him. He felt small, lost. Then light filled the field, and a man walked toward him. The man's clothes seemed to glow. His face carried a strength Ahmad had never seen before, but also a kindness that made Ahmad want to cry. The man said, "Ahmad, do not be afraid. I see you." When Ahmad woke up, he could not stop thinking about it. Days later, he told his older cousin, who went pale and whispered, "I had the same dream." In Riyadh, an elderly widow we will call Fatima had spent decades following every rule, every tradition, every prayer. But after her husband died, the rituals felt hollow. She prayed out of habit, not hope. One afternoon, she fell asleep in her chair, exhausted from grief. In her dream, she stood in a garden more beautiful than anything she had seen in her long life. A man approached her, dressed in white that seemed to shine from within. His face was strong but gentle. He looked at her with eyes full of compassion and said, "Fatima, I know your sorrow. Follow me, and I will give you rest. She woke with tears on her face and a peace in her chest she had not felt in years. In Dammam, a successful businessman we will call Khalid had everything the world said mattered: money, status, respect. But success had not filled the emptiness inside him. One night, after closing a major deal, Khalid had a dream that shook him to his core. He stood in his office, surrounded by contracts and awards, but the room was dark. Then light poured in, and a man in radiant white stood before him. The man's voice was calm but carried a weight that made Khalid feel like he was standing before a king. "Khalid," the man said, "you have gained much, but you are still searching. I am what you are looking for." Khalid woke up gasping. Within a week, he had found online testimonies from others describing the exact same man. In Medina, a university student we will call Laila was studying late one night when exhaustion overcame her. She dreamed she was walking through a library with endless shelves, searching for a book she could not name. Then a man appeared, dressed in clothes that seemed woven from light itself. His face radiated both authority and love. He said, "Laila, stop searching in books. I am the word you need." When she woke, Laila could not explain what had happened. But she could not forget his face. 5 people. 5 cities. 5 completely different lives. None of them knew each other. None had been contacted by missionaries. None had church connections. None had even been looking for Jesus. And yet, they all described the same encounter. The same man dressed in light. The same face that carried both strength and kindness. The same voice that was calm yet powerful enough to shake them awake. And the same words that pierced straight into their hearts. "Do not be afraid. I see you. Follow me." This is not coincidence. This is pattern. And the pattern is spreading. Underground networks across Saudi Arabia have been flooded with messages over the last several months. Encrypted messaging apps light up in the middle of the night with questions that used to be unthinkable. Did you see the man in white? He called me by name. Did he call your stew? He told me not to fear. Did he say that to you? I saw him last night. I cannot stop thinking about him. The testimonies spread through whispered conversations in coffee shops, through coded messages between trusted friends, through private groups hidden behind layers of digital security. People who have never met in person are discovering they share the same impossible experience. Researchers who track the growth of Christianity in closed countries report that this is not unusual. In nations where the gospel cannot be preached openly, where Bibles are banned, where evangelism is illegal, Jesus often bypasses the system entirely. He appears in dreams and visions before people ever see a Bible, before they ever meet a Christian, before they even know what they are looking for. It bypasses fear. It bypasses culture. It bypasses law. And it is happening right now in Saudi Arabia on a scale that no one can fully measure. But the pattern does not stop with students, widows, and businessmen. Something even more shocking began to happen. People inside the system, people whose job it was to enforce Islamic law and protect the nation from outside religious influence, started having the same dreams. One of those people was a Saudi security officer we will call Yasser. And his story changes everything. Before I tell you about Yasser, there is another testimony you need to hear. Because what is happening in Saudi Arabia is not just reaching the spiritually hungry or the emotionally desperate. It is reaching people who were not looking for anything at all. People like Fahid. Fahid was a civil engineer in his early 30s, working for one of the largest construction firms in the kingdom. He had studied abroad, earned advanced degrees, and built a career that his family was proud of. He was confident, educated, respected. He had a sharp mind and a successful future ahead of him. Religion, to Fahid, was tradition, not relationship. not passion. Just something you did because everyone did it. He prayed because everyone prayed. He fasted because everyone fasted. But his heart was never in it. His focus was on his work, his reputation, his next promotion. If you had asked Fahid if he was searching for spiritual truth, he would have laughed. He had everything figured out. Or so he thought. One night, after working late on a major project, Fahid came home exhausted. He collapsed into bed without even changing his clothes. And that is when the dream came. In the dream, Fahid was walking through the desert at night. The sand stretched endlessly in every direction. There were no landmarks, no lights, no signs of life. Just darkness and sand and the sound of his own footsteps. He kept walking, but he was getting nowhere. Every direction looked the same. He was lost, exhausted, frustrated. And then, behind him, light appeared. Fahid turned around and saw a man dressed in white walking toward him. The man's clothes seemed to glow with their own light, pushing back the darkness around them. His face was calm but carried an authority that made Fahid's breath catch. The man stopped a few feet away and said, "You are walking in circles, but I offer you a path." Fahid stared at him. Something about the man's presence made him feel exposed, like every accomplishment, every credential, every achievement he had built his identity on suddenly meant nothing. Fahid found his voice. "Who are you?" The man looked directly into his eyes and said, "I am the truth you were told not to look for." The words hit Fahid like a physical blow. He woke up gasping, his heart racing. He sat up in bed, drenched in sweat, trying to make sense of what had just happened. It was just a dream. That is what he told himself. Just a dream. But it did not feel like a dream. It felt more real than anything he had experienced while awake. The man's face was still vivid in his mind. The voice still echoed in his ears. And those words, "I am the truth you were told not to look for," would not leave him alone. Fahid tried to go back to sleep, but he could not. He tried to focus on work the next day, but he could not. The dream haunted him. The man haunted him. The words haunted him. For 3 days, Fahid tried to push it out of his mind. But on the 4th night, he gave in. He locked his office door, pulled out his phone, and started searching. He did not even know what he was searching for at first. He just typed fragments of what he remembered. Man in white in dreams. Truth you were told not to look for. Walking in circles but offered a path. That is when he found Christian testimonies. Stories from people in other Muslim countries who had experienced the same thing. And then he found scriptures. Verses that used the same language he had heard in the dream. One passage stopped him cold. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." His hands started shaking. The man in his dream had called himself the truth. And now Fahid was staring at words written 2000 years ago that said the same thing. Something impossible had happened. Something supernatural had broken through the walls of his rational, controlled, carefully constructed life. And Fahid could not deny it. But recognizing the truth and accepting the truth are two very different things. For weeks, Fahid wrestled with what this meant. He read in secret. He researched in private. He avoided his family's questions about why he seemed distracted. And the more he learned, the heavier the weight became. Following Jesus in Saudi Arabia was not like following a philosophy or adopting a new worldview. It was risking everything. His family would disown him. His career could end. His safety would be in jeopardy. In the worst case, he could be arrested, imprisoned, or worse. Fahid sat alone in his apartment one night, staring at a digital copy of the Bible he had downloaded onto an encrypted app. The cost was enormous. The risk was real. But the man in the dream had offered him a path. And Fahid realized that no matter how many circles he walked in his current life, he would never find what he was looking for. He made his decision. Late one night, Fahid reached out to an encrypted contact he had found through careful, quiet research. A single message: "I saw him chew." Within hours, he received a response. A coded invitation. An entry point into the underground network of Saudi believers. What Fahid discovered when he made contact shocked him. He was not alone. Not even close. There were thousands of others. Engineers like him. Doctors. Teachers. Students. Business people. Ordinary Saudis who had encountered the same man in white. Who had heard the same voice. Who had made the same impossible decision. They met in secret. They studied in hidden groups. They supported each other through encrypted messages and carefully planned gatherings. And they were growing. Fahid had thought he was stepping into isolation. Instead, he had stepped into a movement. A movement that no one could stop. But the most shocking testimony of all came from a place no one expected. His name is Yasser. And until a few months ago, his job was to stop people like Mariam, Ahmad, Fatima, Khalid, Laila, and Fahid. Yasser was a security officer working for a government agency tasked with monitoring communities and reporting suspicious activity. His loyalty was to the law. His duty was to protect the nation from what the system considered dangerous outside influences. And to Yasser, Christianity was exactly that, a dangerous influence. He had been trained to watch for the signs. Unusual online activity. Secretive gatherings. People asking the wrong questions. Changes in behavior that suggested someone might be abandoning Islam. When he found something suspicious, he reported it. That was his job. And he was good at it. Yasser did not see himself as cruel. He saw himself as a patriot. Someone protecting his country's values, preserving its identity, keeping the social order intact. Christianity, in his mind, was a foreign ideology that threatened everything Saudi Arabia stood for. He had no sympathy for converts. No mercy for those who betrayed their faith. They knew the consequences. They made their choice. At least, that is what Yasser believed until the night everything changed. It had been a long shift. Yasser had spent hours reviewing reports, monitoring communications, tracking individuals flagged by the system. He came home after midnight, exhausted. He barely had the energy to take off his shoes before collapsing onto his bed. And then he fell asleep. In his dream, Yasser found himself standing in a dark room. The walls were lined with filing cabinets and shelves overflowing with reports, documents, case files. It looked like his office, but colder, emptier. He was alone, surrounded by records of people he had investigated, people he had flagged, people whose lives had been disrupted because of his work. Then, without warning, light flooded the room. Yasser spun around. A man dressed in white stood in front of him. The light seemed to come from the man himself, radiating outward and pushing back the darkness. His face was strong but not harsh. Commanding but not condemning. Yasser felt frozen. He could not move. Could not speak. The man looked at him and said, "Yasser, you guard laws, but I guard hearts." The words cut through him like a blade. The man continued, "You look for threats, but I look for the lost." Yasser's chest tightened. He wanted to respond, to defend himself, to explain that he was just doing his job. But no words came. And then the man said something that Yasser would never forget. "Before you searched for me, I searched for you." Yasser woke up shaking. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. His hands were trembling. His mind was racing. The dream was so vivid, So real, that he could still see the man's face. He could still hear the voice. Before you searched for me, I searched for you. Yasser did not sleep the rest of that night. For days, he tried to push the dream out of his mind. He went to work. He reviewed reports. He did his job. But the words would not leave him alone. Every time he looked at a case file, every time he flagged someone for investigation, he heard the voice. I guard hearts. I look for the lost. I searched for you. Finally, Yasser could not take it anymore. Late one night, in the privacy of his home, he did something he had never done before. He opened an encrypted browser and started searching for answers. Not to monitor someone else. Not to investigate a suspect. But to find out who the man in his dream was. It did not take long. The descriptions matched. The testimonies matched. The words matched. It was Jesus. Yasser sat in the darkness of his room, staring at his screen, and felt his entire world collapse. The man he had been taught to see as a foreign prophet, a figure from another religion, a symbol of everything his job was meant to protect against, that man had come to him, had spoken to him, had told him he was searching for him. For weeks, Yasser lived in turmoil. He continued working, but his heart was no longer in it. He read scripture in secret, hiding his searches, deleting his history. He wrestled with questions he had never allowed himself to ask. And slowly, something inside him changed. Yasser began to see the people in his reports differently. They were not threats. They were not traitors. They were people who had encountered the same man he had. People who had heard the same voice. People who were willing to risk everything because they had found something, someone, worth risking everything for. And then Yasser made a decision that would have been unthinkable just months before. Instead of hunting Christians, he began quietly protecting them. When a case came across his desk that he knew would lead to a believer, he delayed the report. When surveillance flagged suspicious activity, he found reasons to close the investigation early. When he could, he sent quiet warnings through back channels, giving people time to cover their tracks. The hunter had become a shield. But living this double life came at a cost. Yasser could not tell his family. He could not tell his colleagues. He had to continue appearing loyal to the system, while secretly undermining it. The danger was real. If he was discovered, he would not just lose his job. He could lose his freedom. His life. But Yasser had encountered the man in white. And once you meet Jesus, you cannot go back to who you were before. Stories like Yasser's are not isolated. They are multiplying. Across Saudi Arabia, in government offices, security agencies, and positions of authority, there are others like him. People who were once enforcers of the law, now protecting those the law seeks to stop. People who were once hunters now serving as shields. The movement is not just growing among ordinary citizens. It is reaching into the system itself. And that raises a question that demands an answer. Why dreams? Why this method? Why now? Why in Saudi Arabia? Why dreams? It is a question that comes up every time someone hears these testimonies. Why would Jesus choose this method? Why not something more public, more dramatic, more undeniable? The answer is both simple and brilliant. Because dreams are the one thing no government on earth can control. Think about what the Saudi government can block. They can ban churches. And they have. There is not a single church building anywhere in the country. They can confiscate Bibles. And they do. Customs agents search luggage. Security forces raid homes. Anyone caught with Christian materials faces interrogation. They can monitor phones. Every call, every message, every search can be tracked. Digital surveillance in Saudi Arabia is sophisticated and relentless. Say the wrong thing online, and you will get a visit. They can arrest preachers. Any missionary caught evangelizing in Saudi Arabia will be detained, interrogated, and deported. Saudi citizens who preach the gospel face prison or worse. They can close borders. They can control who enters the country and why. They can restrict travel, limit access, and seal off entire regions if they want to. The system is designed to stop Christianity at every possible point of entry. But there is one place they cannot reach: the human mind at night. Dreams cross borders without visas. Dreams ignore surveillance systems. Dreams bypass internet filters. Dreams reach people in the privacy of their own sleep, in a space no government can monitor, no police can patrol, and no law can regulate. No authority on earth can enter a person's mind while they sleep and stop Jesus from speaking. And culturally, this makes perfect sense. Middle Eastern societies have always respected dreams as meaningful. In Arab and Islamic culture, dreams are not dismissed as random brain activity. They are seen as significant, sometimes even prophetic. People pay attention to them. They talk about them. They seek interpretation for them. So when Jesus appears in a dream, people do not immediately dismiss it as meaningless. They pay attention. They remember. They search for understanding. God is meeting people in a space they already recognize as sacred. This is not a new strategy. It is biblical. God spoke to Joseph in dreams and gave him the wisdom to save nations. He gave Daniel dreams and visions that revealed the future of kingdoms. He appeared to Paul in a vision on the road to Damascus and turned a persecutor into the greatest missionary in history. Throughout Scripture, when God wanted to reach people in hostile environments, when he needed to bypass human systems and speak directly to the heart, he used dreams and visions. He is doing the same thing now. And the beauty of this method is how personal it is. There is no middleman, no translator, no evangelist explaining the gospel through cultural barriers. It is just Jesus and the person. He calls them by name. He speaks directly to their heart. He addresses their specific struggles, their specific doubts, their specific questions. Mariam heard, "I know your heart." Ahmad heard, "I see you." Fahid heard, "I am the truth you were told not to look for." Yasir heard, "Before you searched for me, I searched for you." Each encounter is unique. Each message is personal. Each person feels seen, known, and loved in a way they have never experienced before. And that kind of encounter is undeniable. You can argue with a sermon. You can dismiss a pamphlet. You can ignore a social media post. But you cannot unsee what you have seen in a dream. You cannot unhear a voice that called you by name. You cannot unfeel the presence of someone who looked into your soul and told you they know you. This is not mass marketing. This is not a campaign. This is not a strategy designed by human hands. This is Jesus himself, walking into the most closed nation on earth, one heart at a time. And the movement it is creating is invisible to the public, but massive beneath the surface. Because here is what makes this truly unstoppable. It is personal. He comes to individuals, in the privacy of their own minds, and reveals himself in ways that are specific to them. It is quiet. There are no public events, no rallies, no stadiums, no broadcasts, no spectacle. Just quiet encounters in the middle of the night. And it is unstoppable. There is no law that can prevent it. No surveillance system that can detect it. No force on earth that can block it. The testimonies are spreading. But not on Twitter. Not on Instagram. Not on YouTube. They are spreading through encrypted messaging apps. Through whispered conversations in coffee shops. Through coded language in group chats. Through private introductions from one believer to another. through digital Bibles passed quietly between trusted contacts. Did you see him? He came to me, you. I cannot stop thinking about what he said. I need to know more. The underground networks are flooded with people searching, asking, discovering. And every testimony leads to more questions. Every question leads to more searching. Every search leads to more encounters. Thousands of Saudis are discovering that Jesus is not just a prophet mentioned in the Quran. He is not just a historical figure from 2000 years ago. He is alive. He is active. He is reaching into the most forbidden places on earth and calling people by name. And no wall is high enough, no law strong enough, and no darkness deep enough to stop him. The testimonies are going viral. Not in the way the world defines viral, but in the way movements of God have always spread, one heart at a time, one whispered story at a time, one transformed life at a time. And the story is just beginning. But what does faith look like when it has to stay hidden? For believers in Saudi Arabia, following Jesus is not just a private spiritual decision. It is a daily act of courage that requires constant vigilance, careful planning, and complete trust in people you have never met face to face. They meet in homes with curtains drawn and phones turned off. Small groups of 3 or 4 gathering in living rooms, speaking in hushed tones, always aware of the risk. One person keeps watch at the window. Another monitors the time. They pray quietly. They study quickly. And they leave separately, minutes apart, so no one notices a pattern. Some gatherings happen on encrypted video calls, believers scattered across different cities connecting through apps designed to leave no trace. Faces pixelated. Voices disguised. Connections routed through multiple servers. They study scripture together, pray for one another, and then disconnect, deleting every record of the meeting. Their language is coded. The teacher, instead of Jesus. The book, instead of the Bible. The family, instead of the church. Even their questions are carefully worded. Have you met the teacher? Means, are you a believer? Do you have the book? Means, do you have access to scripture? The digital underground is sophisticated. They use messaging apps that auto-delete after being read. They store Bibles disguised as other files, renamed as work documents, hidden in cloud folders labeled with mundane titles. They type prayers and then delete them immediately after sending. Every digital footprint is carefully erased. New believers are not left alone. There is a mentorship system, quietly organized, passed from contact to contact. When someone like Mariam or Fahid first reaches out, they are connected with someone who has been walking this path longer. A guide. A mentor. Someone who can teach them how to stay safe while growing in faith. But trust is the most valuable currency in this network. Every new contact could be a trap. Every meeting could be a setup. Every conversation could be monitored. They verify identities carefully. They ask questions only real believers would know how to answer. They move slowly, cautiously, because one mistake could cost someone their freedom or their life. And the cost is real. There is a woman in the network, we will call her Noor, who lost her children when her family discovered her faith. Her husband divorced her. Her parents disowned her. Her own children were told she had abandoned them, betrayed them, shamed them. She has not seen them in over a year. There is a young man, we will call him Samir, who was kicked out of his home at 19. His father told him he was no longer part of the family. He lost his housing, his financial support, his inheritance. He sleeps on the floor of another believer's apartment and works odd jobs to survive. There is a woman, we will call her Huda, who was engaged to be married when she encountered Jesus. When she told her fiancé she could not go through with the wedding, he reported her to her family. She narrowly escaped being sent away for correction. She now lives in hiding, moving between safe houses, unable to contact anyone from her old life. These are not rare stories. They are common. Following Jesus in Saudi Arabia costs everything. And yet, when you ask these believers if they regret their decision, they all say the same thing. No. Despite the suffering, they describe a peace they had never known before. Despite the loss, they talk about a joy that does not make sense to anyone on the outside. Despite the danger, they speak of a freedom they never had even when they were physically safe and socially accepted. Noor says, "I lost my children, but I found the Father who will never leave me." Samir says, "I lost my family, but I gained brothers and sisters who would die for me." Huda says, "I lost my future, but I found life." They describe it as light in the darkness, hope in the suffering, strength they do not have on their own. And the network is growing. Every week, there are new faces. Teenagers who had dreams they cannot explain. Professionals who encountered Jesus in the middle of successful careers. Elderly widows who thought their lives were over until he appeared. Wealthy businesspeople and struggling laborers. Educated skeptics and simple believers. The underground church in Saudi Arabia does not look like a church anywhere else in the world. There are no buildings, no budgets, no programs. Just people who have met the same Jesus, who share the same risk, who carry the same hope. And the bond between them is unbreakable. They come from different cities, different backgrounds, different social classes. In the outside world, they would never have been friends. But in the hidden network, they are family. Because they have all encountered the man in white. They have all heard the voice that called them by name. They have all made the decision to follow him no matter the cost. There is a question they all ask, especially in the beginning. Why me? Why did he choose to appear to me? Some were not even searching. Some were actively opposed. Some were living comfortable lives with no spiritual hunger at all. And yet, Jesus came to them. The only answer they have found is this: He loves them. He chose them. And He is relentless in His pursuit. The movement is growing. The network is expanding. The testimonies are multiplying. But the question is shifting. It is no longer just, what is Jesus doing in Saudi Arabia? The question now is, what does this mean for the rest of us? There is something deeply convicting about what is happening in Saudi Arabia. While believers there whisper prayers in fear, risking everything just to say the name of Jesus, many Christians in other parts of the world live in complete freedom, and yet have no hunger. Think about the contrast. In the West, there are churches on every corner. Massive buildings with steeples and sound systems and parking lots. Some have coffee shops inside. Some have bookstores. Some look more like concert venues than places of worship. There are Bibles in every language, every translation, every format. Physical copies. Digital versions. Audio Bibles. Study Bibles. Bibles with commentary, maps, and cross-references. You can get a Bible for free almost anywhere. You can download one in seconds. There is worship music everywhere. On the radio. On streaming platforms. In stadiums. Christian music is an entire industry. Concerts. Festivals. Albums released every week. There is Christian media, television networks, podcasts, YouTube channels, blogs, social media influencers talking about faith constantly. There are Christian books on every topic imaginable. There are conferences, retreats, seminars, Bible studies in every city. And there is freedom. The freedom to gather publicly. The freedom to speak openly about faith. The freedom to share the gospel without fear of arrest. The freedom to wear a cross, carry a Bible, pray out loud, worship in public. Everything that Saudi believers would risk their lives for, Western Christians have in abundance. And yet, how many take it for granted? Here is the paradox. In Saudi Arabia, faith costs everything. Your family, your career, your safety, your future. And yet, thousands are willing to pay that price because they have encountered Jesus. In the West, faith often costs nothing. No persecution, no risk, no sacrifice required. You can be a Christian and live comfortably, socially accepted, legally protected. But when faith costs nothing, it often means nothing. The difference is not about geography. It is not about culture. The difference is encounter. Saudi believers are not following Jesus because it is easy. They are not following him because it is culturally acceptable or socially beneficial. They are following him because they met him. They heard his voice calling their name. They felt his peace in a way that shattered every fear. They saw his light and realized that nothing else in life compares. That kind of encounter changes everything. But in the West, many people have information about Jesus without ever encountering Jesus. They know the stories. They have heard the sermons. They can recite the verses. But they have never met him. Not really. There is a difference between knowledge and knowing. Between learning about someone and encountering them personally. Between having a Bible on your shelf and hearing the voice of God speak directly into your heart. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If Jesus can appear in the most restricted nation on earth, in a country where Christianity is illegal, where Bibles are banned, where the system is designed to eliminate faith entirely, what excuse do we have for ignoring him in places where we are completely free to seek him? If he is reaching people who have never heard his name, who were not looking for him, who had no access to scripture or church or Christian community, how much more is he available to those who have every resource at their fingertips? The question is not whether Jesus is still speaking. The question is whether we are still listening. Are we taking for granted what others would die for? Are we so comfortable in our freedom that we have lost our hunger? Are we so familiar with the story of Jesus that we have stopped encountering the person of Jesus? The believers in Saudi Arabia are experiencing something that many in the West have forgotten is possible. They are encountering a living, active, speaking, pursuing God who meets them in the most unexpected places and changes their lives completely. What would change if Western Christians encountered Jesus the way Saudi believers are encountering him? What would change if we stopped treating faith like a Sunday routine and started treating it like a life-altering relationship? What would change if we sought him with the same desperation that someone in a restricted nation seeks him, knowing that nothing else matters, nothing else satisfies, nothing else is worth living for? The same Jesus who is appearing in dreams in Saudi Arabia is available right now to anyone who seeks him. He has not changed. He is not distant. He is not silent. But we have to seek him. Not casually. Not when it is convenient. Not as an add-on to an already busy life. We have to seek him the way Mariam sought him, when she risked everything to search online in the middle of the night. The way Fahad sought him when he could not stop thinking about the dream. The way Yasser sought him even though it meant turning his entire world upside down. The invitation is open. The same Jesus who is walking into closed nations, bypassing governments, appearing in dreams, and calling people by name, that Jesus is still speaking, still pursuing, still available. The question is not whether he will meet us. The question is whether we will seek him. Meanwhile, in Saudi Arabia, the movement continues to grow. Every night, more dreams. Every week, more testimonies. Every month, more believers willing to risk everything because they have encountered someone worth dying for. The underground network is expanding. The testimonies are multiplying. And the story is only beginning. Right now, as you read this, the movement in Saudi Arabia is not slowing down. It is accelerating. Every night, more dreams. Every week, more testimonies. Every month, more people joining the underground network of believers who have encountered Jesus in one of the most restricted nations on earth. The scope of what is happening is staggering. There are now thousands of Saudi believers. They are in homes across Riyadh, in university dorms in Jeddah, in marketplaces in Dammam, in corporate offices in Khobar, in small towns scattered across the desert. Ordinary people carrying extraordinary encounters. Teachers, students, engineers, homemakers, business owners, security officers, young and old, wealthy and poor, all of them connected by the same experience, all of them marked by the same encounter, and the ripple effect is spreading. Believers are cautiously reaching out to family members. A sister whispers to a brother. A son shares with his mother. A cousin speaks to a cousin. They move slowly. They choose their words carefully. They know the risk. But they also know they cannot keep silent about what they have experienced. They are becoming lights in deep darkness. But the cost remains real. Some have been discovered, reported by neighbors, turned in by family members, investigated by authorities. They have been interrogated. Some have been imprisoned. Some have been separated from their children. Some have lost everything. And yet, when pressured to renounce their faith, when threatened with consequences, when given the chance to go back to their old lives, they refuse. Their answer is always the same. How can I deny someone I have met? How can I unsee what I have seen? How can I turn away from the one who called me by name and told me he loves me? You cannot unencounter Jesus. And the testimonies are not just about dreams anymore. There are reports of miracles, healings that doctors cannot explain, deliverances from addictions that had controlled people for years, supernatural provision when believers lost their income, protection when they should have been discovered. One believer reported that during a raid on his neighborhood, security forces searched every home except his. He watched from his window as they went door to door, and for reasons no one could explain, they skipped his house entirely. Another testified that after losing her job for suspected apostasy, money appeared in her account from an unknown source, exactly the amount she needed to survive that month. These are not coincidences. This is the hand of God moving in real time. And what is happening in Saudi Arabia has prophetic significance. For decades, the Middle East has been considered one of the hardest regions in the world for the gospel. Governments hostile to Christianity, cultures resistant to change, systems designed to keep Islam dominant and Christianity suppressed. And yet, God is moving. If Jesus can reach Saudi Arabia, one of the most closed, most restricted, most heavily monitored nations on earth, then no place is beyond his reach. No government is too powerful. No culture is too resistant. No system is too strong. Jesus is walking into places where no human missionary can go. He is appearing where no preacher is allowed. He is speaking where no Bible is permitted. No wall is high enough. No law is strong enough. No darkness is deep enough to stop the light of Christ. This is not fiction. This is not exaggeration. This is happening right now. Underground networks, ministries working in the Middle East, researchers tracking the growth of Christianity in closed countries, they all confirm it. The movement is real. The testimonies are verified. The encounters are documented. And the story is just beginning. So here is the final word. To the believers in Saudi Arabia, who might somehow hear this message, you are not alone. The global church is praying for you. We see your courage. We honor your sacrifice. We stand with you in spirit, even when we cannot stand with you in person. Keep the faith. Jesus has not forgotten you. He is with you in every whispered prayer, every secret gathering, every moment of fear. You are part of a movement that cannot be stopped. Two believers in free nations who have grown comfortable. Wake up. This is a call to encounter Jesus afresh. Do not waste the freedom you have been given. Do not take for granted what others would die for. Seek Him with the same hunger that drives Saudi believers to risk everything. The same Jesus who is appearing in restricted nations is available to you right now. But you have to pursue Him. To those who are seeking, who are curious, who are wondering if any of this is real, the same Jesus who is appearing in dreams in Saudi Arabia is calling you Jew. He is not distant. He is not silent. He is pursuing you right now, in this moment. The question is not whether He is reaching out. The question is whether you will respond. Because here is the ultimate truth that every testimony in Saudi Arabia points to. Jesus is alive. He is active. He is pursuing. And He is unstoppable. He is not confined to history. He is not limited by geography. He is not stopped by governments, laws, borders, or systems designed to keep Him out. He is moving. Right now. In Saudi Arabia. In the Middle East. Around the world. And in your life, if you let Him. Somewhere in Saudi Arabia tonight, someone will close their eyes to sleep. And in the quiet darkness of their room, light will appear. A man dressed in white will step forward. And they will hear words that will change their life forever. Do not be afraid. I see you. Follow me. The testimonies are spreading. The encounters are continuing. And the story is only beginning.